WTN special presentation.
With the various apostolates associated with the Legion of Mary, you're kind of, forced to make contact with strangers, and that's always been very difficult for me. I'm getting more used to it now. It's still a little awkward at times, but, with the Legion, you pray and you know that you're being watched over, so you really don't worry.
Hi, 我係阿信樂，咁咧就已經參加咗呢個聖母軍咧，都有成19年啦，原來數起得上嚟。咁咧我當時咧就由青年嘅支團開始啦，咁到而家咁啊當然已經係一個成年支團嘅團員啦。係啦，首先咧就梗係介紹翻我自己嘅工作啦。咁我咧就教舞蹈班啦。Hi， 對住鏡頭 say 隻 hi 先 ，hi 係啦。
Lawyers and all kinds of people mixing in these circles, and yet they learn in the spirit of Mary to see her son, even in the most distressed disguises of people who are just not making it in this life.
Legion of Mary, I can see that there is an opportunity to stand up for the faith at times, give good example. I've become more aware of Blessed Mother's role as a mediator or mediatrix on the path to God.
All over the world, members of the Legion of Mary share their Catholic faith in Jesus and their trust in his mother Mary. They call themselves legionaries, not because they are a conquering army, but because with loyalty and courage they join in a common mission to spread the good news. The Legion is a powerful group in the service of the Church, and its strength is the power to do good, rooted in the strong faith of each individual. There are branches of the Legion on the continent. Every week, small groups gather together to pray and to take part in apostolic work. Jesus asked his apostles to spread the gospel, a challenge that remains for all Christians. To help in their work of evangelization, Legion members draw special inspiration from Mary, Mother of God, Mother of the Church. Every Catholic is welcome to join, and each person comes for a different reason: to reinforce their own faith, or perhaps to introduce Christianity to non-believers, or simply to revitalize the faith of others. Members of the Legion of Mary know the grace and rewards of knowing a loving God.
So if you don't put something into your faith, or spend some time learning about it, or putting it into action, you're not going to get results. It's just going to be dead,
And I think it's the simplicity of it. It's deceptively simple. 2 hours apostolic work a week, But if a man did that, or a woman did that, if you do it regularly, it seems to change one's life.
The Legion of Mary started in Dublin, Ireland in 1921. Frank Duff was a young civil servant at this time and was involved in Catholic social action among the poor. But he was aware of the spiritual poverty of his fellow Dubliners. Frank and a small group of like-minded people came together and prayed to Our Lady for Christ, the sinners and those of lost faith, they could bring people to the safety of the Church by trusting in Our Lady. The little group called itself the Legion of Mary and worked as part of the local parish. As the idea became more popular, Frank prepared the Legion handbook. In a surprisingly short time, new branches of the Legion opened up across the world. Today, with 10 million members in 191 countries, the Legion is one of the largest Catholic lay organizations in the world.
It is based on a view of the role of Mary as the mother of Jesus, the mother of the Church, who continues in that role of bringing Christ to people, just as she brought Christ into the world in a physical sense, bringing Christ through the Church, which is the body of Christ. So it's a continuance of that And it's based on that simple idea.
One of the first international centres of the Legion of Mary was Bangalore in India. Catholic parishes here have been attracting members since 1931. An aspect of Legion membership is the challenge to strive for personal holiness. Frank Duff encouraged each member to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. In that way, each one of us can be a saint.
Mother Mary has got the divine spirit in her. She is carrying the word of God. And when she has done so much, why we can't do a little?
Visiting the poor and the sick is one of the main apostolic works for Legion members.
He is all alone. Whenever we visit him, he feels some pleasure in his mind and some sort of consolation for him.
It allows the members of the Catholic parish, including legionaries, share in a sense of Christian community. Supporting friendships with faith echoes the sense of community established by the first Christians. Spreading the gospel by example is one of the aims of the Legion of Mary. In developing countries, the Legion continues to be of great service to the Church. Consider Nigeria, where the Legion has been pivotal in allowing the Church to grow since the 1930s.
The setup worked out very well in Nigeria, especially approach to those who are not yet Christians, and the approach to those who are indeed Christians, but are rather cold in the faith.
Lagos is one of the biggest cities in Africa, sprawling on the mainland and on islands in Lagos Lagoon. Many of the islands are connected by bridges, but some can only be reached by boat. People come to a big city like this in search of a better life. Many are still searching. Legionaries can help them find spiritual comfort.
And they need someone who will meet them in terms of one-to-one. The priest can meet them, yes, 3,000 in front of them on Sunday. But it's not the same when it's one-to-one. And a fellow Christian that they know, who is not Reverend anybody, is just Mr. or Miss or Mrs. The witness value there is powerful.
The Legion of Mary also finds a role in places where people are often too busy to take time out to reflect on issues of faith and spirituality. In New York, legionaries make a special effort to be a witness to the faith at Grand Central subway station.
We are members of the Legion of Mary.
What's that about?
It's an international organization, for both men and women.
And then you have the Apostles' Creed, then the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory, and then...
People with spiritual needs can be found in all sorts of situations. One of the great strengths of the Legion is that it's parish-based, with members who know the locality.
What we say is to local legionaries, your road is where you find yourself, not over the hill, not faraway places, so that we try and encourage everybody to start where they are. And then, when it's up and running, to look, can we help in the next parish? Can we start the Legion in the next parish?
Legionaries have a special devotion to Our Lady, Mother of the Church. Mothers play a particular role in nurturing community, and in the modern context, the love of Mary for the Church continues to be an inspiration. For legionaries, Mary is not just an object of devotion. Rather, she's a role model for each one of us.
Something that Frank Duff emphasised, and I think it's the thing that's coming out more now, is that we need above all to live Mary, to imitate Mary, to be Mary, to have the mind of Mary. Mary is not just somebody we pray to or, that we ask for her intercession, but Mary is somebody we can imitate and relive in our own lives. That's what I think is martyrdom.
Welcome to Mary. The Mother of Jesus has come to this home.
True devotion to Mary means loving Mary with your sleeves rolled up. She's the mother of the family, and if you're a member of that family, you will help your mother in the running of that family, caring for the siblings, caring for your brothers and sisters. Otherwise, what kind of devotion to Mary is it, really?
Nairobi is like many modern cities across the world, and there are many ways for Legion members here to live their faith and serve the church in honor of Mary. Sometimes Legionaries are called to help out on special occasions, like the annual clean-up at this children's home. Legionaries are ready to respond to this challenge, but they also see other needs.
And it's part of our work to go around assisting people spiritually. And it gives me joy to think that I can be useful.
60% of Nairobi's 4 million citizens live in places like this. They are pushed to the literally living on the edge. Nairobi is not unusual. Places like this are home to a third of the world's population. Such poverty is a challenge for Christians everywhere. Members of the local Legion of Mary are a visible reminder to people here that their church and their God have not abandoned them. The Legion is bringing Catholicism to every corner of the world and to places you might not expect. In the territory of Hong Kong, the Legion has a particular link with young adult legionaries, and they are instrumental in the mission of conversion to Catholicism. About 4,000 a year are baptized into the church in Hong Kong. It's usually the culmination of a long period of learning and reflecting on the faith. And then there are the other occasional times you're fair in Victoria Park. Mary Concilium, its international governing body, has been taking a leadership role on one of the great challenges facing the church today.
The theme is the new evangelization, and for the church, the great challenge of the new millennium. Priests and laity working together to proclaim the good news.
The challenge of the new evangelization, helping Catholics return to the sacraments, is common to many countries of the Western world. The lay people who make up the Legion are ready for this challenge, and in organizing conferences for the clergy, they look for ways to coordinate the work more closely with church leaders.
It's interesting that this is a conference for priests which has been organized and inspired by a movement constituted primarily of laypersons. There's a huge amount we can learn from the daily Christian life of those to whom we minister. And we need a church which exceeds the importance of the ministry of the priesthood and involves the work of lay people in the evangelizing mission of the church.
Really important for the church in countries like Ireland. It's true there are fewer vocations to ordained religious life, but that doesn't mean young people are not prepared to make a commitment to their faith. As these young legionaries gather for their annual conference, they are preparing to join in the work of evangelization and engage with other young people of perhaps little faith or none.
You have to be listening and understand where are they at and speak to them at the level they're at and bring them along slowly. And a lot of people nowadays need a conversion or reversion to Catholic faith, but it's not instant.
People are now reassessing the potential in their own lives for a sense of values, a sense of commitment, and a sense of service. I think the Legion provides an outlet for that.
Australia is an example of a modern, wealthy, and somewhat secular country. And yet, the Legion of Mary continues to grow and be a vital part of church life here. 60 new presidia have opened in parishes across Australia in the last 6 years. Christina Hayes is a young artist from Melbourne who recently joined the Legion.
Creating relationships is
sometimes quite similar to creating a painting. You have to start in a general messy way. Things might not work out so well, but you learn, and the Legion helps you develop those relationships. It gives you a starting place.
The Legion of Mary has a long history in Melbourne going back to 1934. Since then, apostolic works like visiting the sick and the old continue to be part of the Legion's routine.
We meet the residents there, and often on Sunday mornings we take them to Mass. In the Legion in the 1950s? Most of them are in wheelchairs, so we wheel them down, and we often get to sit with them and talk.
The liaison person for World Youth Day in the parish?
It's provided me really with training in talking about faith, and it's really a good grounding in my own faith that I didn't have before.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
But before they discuss, they pray. And in between, they give us
I think much and stay in the background and encourage them, and who believes in the vocation of the laity. The laity are 99% of the church.
Committed Catholic laity. And a country like Rwanda also shows how the Legion can help a church grow and be a bridge of healing between people. Gatherings like this, celebrating the Legion and its work, are evidence of how it enriches the lives of these ordinary people. Buenos Aires, Argentina. Here, like in Mexico and Brazil and other countries in the region, the Legion of Mary has played an important role in the history of the Catholic Church. As countries won their independence in the 19th century, one result was a shortage of priests. In fact, it wasn't until the 1950s that the Church began to grow again because of the impact of the Legion of Mary. Today, one of the apostolic works of the Senatus of Buenos Aires is to spend time with vulnerable young women. These young mothers have been sent to this shelter by the courts. For many, it's their first experience of a safe and peaceful home and the opportunity of an education. Legionaries can respond because they understand the love of another young mother.
Ser legionario, por empezar, serle fiel a la Virgen. Y para mí es justamente ese amor que uno le tiene a María, que va creciendo día a día, es serle fiel a esa misión, que bueno.
Primero porque yo tengo vocación de servicio. Entonces, cualquier tipo de trabajo que esté en relación con el ser humano, me encanta, y sigo trabajando todavía con grupos de gente joven, ¿sí? Y ahora vamos a hacer una misión en una zona muy difícil, donde existe la droga, la prostitución, etcétera, etcétera. Y ustedes saben que eso solamente lo podemos lograr cuando tenemos un corazón dedicado, un corazón que ama, un corazón que cree, ¿verdad? Y que quiere cumplir con los mandamientos de la ley de Dios.
People who want to fulfill God's commandments and honor the Mother of Jesus are not alone. When the Legion in South Korea wanted to celebrate its 50th anniversary, 40,000 gathered in the sports stadium in Gwangju. Together, they share the bonds of a true faith. And individually, each one is striving for personal holiness, modelled on Marian spirituality.
In guiding legionaries in their spiritual growth.
It was a great privilege to travel on behalf of the Legion. I had the honour of going to Korea. And what always struck me, everywhere I went, to a different country, different culture, you found a family. That the Legion is one big family around the world, and that you're always greeted as a member of a family.
Legion members often comment that when they visit each other, there are no barriers to friendship, no problems about distance. Geography is not an issue when members everywhere share the Legion's practices and prayer life. These connections allow each one to feel part of the universal Catholic Church.
I know of no other body, clerical or lay, where ordinary members of the Legion have such a universal knowledge of the Church in Africa, Asia, Latin America, North America, Europe, to have a Catholic formation that gives a Catholic, a sense of belonging to the Universal Church.
Legionaries undertake to bring the Catholic faith to the farthest corners of the earth. Here in a rural part of the Philippines, the approach to evangelization is no different to what legionaries do on the streets of Paris or Tokyo. Quiet, one-to-one personal contact where there is respect for the dignity of each individual, no matter what the circumstances. It's not the theological training that's important, but rather faith and trust in Our Lady. This is the approach recommended in the Legion Handbook, and which has worked since the 1920s.
I think we found about the legionaries in the Philippines, and that is the reason why the thing is flourishing. And the meeting that I attended many meetings over there, and I have to say that they were exactly the same as the meetings I have here in Dublin or any part of Ireland. And the beautiful unifying factor of the Legion insofar as that we're all the same.
Loyal to the Universal Church, the Legion always follows diocesan and Vatican policy. In return, the Vatican has approved the Legion as a valuable ally, especially because of the opportunity it provides for lay people to participate. Since the renewal of the Catholic Church at Vatican II, special emphasis is placed on the role of lay people. And so the Legion is a valuable model for the Catholic Church to grow and enrich the lives of its members.
So the idea of Frank Duff was just that, that the church cannot be just priests alone, or lay people alone, each one going their own way, We must be together and work together.
While the apostolic work is a visible sign of the living Christianity of legionaries, it's clear from the Legion Handbook that it's not the most important aspect of Legion membership. Remembering that the principal objective of the Legion is personal sanctification, it is the obligation to attend meetings weekly and to an active prayer life that is most encouraged by the Legion. But it's an obligation that's not a burden. Indeed, legionaries see meetings as a welcome opportunity to join with like-minded people of faith.
Frank Duff had this vision that everybody had a role to play, and the Legion makes room for everybody. So we look forward to what we can do new ways of bringing the truth, the gospel, the good news. And just as Our Lady's role was to bring Christ into the world, and the Legion of Mary, under the guidance, the banner of Our Lady, with her protection and assistance, we try to bring Christ to everybody.
To purchase the EWT and Religious Catalog Home Video DVD of me.
The following is an EWTN special presentation.
From time to time, one of the faithful departed of the Catholic Church is formally recognized by the Pope in Rome as a saint. The Church only chooses people of exceptional holiness to be raised to the full honors of the altar. A candidate for sainthood must undergo a thorough investigation and an assessment of their impact on the faith of others. One such candidate being investigated is an Irishman called Frank Duff. In 1921, Frank Duff founded the Legion of Mary, a worldwide organization for Catholic laity dedicated to prayer and apostolic work under the guidance of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God. Frank Duff recognized the special role of Mary in bringing us closer to Jesus and in serving the Church. It was an idea that has continued to capture the imagination of Catholics everywhere. Legion members are always ready to share their faith with those who most need to hear the message of God's eternal love.
The Legion of Mary works quietly in parishes. It's doing home visitation, it's visiting the people at hospitals, it's working with young people, bringing people back into the church, visiting people in prisons, so a wide variety of work. And we think that it's a very good model for other places around the world. Of course, the Legion is very strong in places like the Congo, the Philippines and Korea, and it's in over 170 countries. So Frank's vision of bringing the good news and trusting in Our Lady to help to bring her son to everybody, it's been realised, and that is the vision that Frank had for the Legion of Mary.
In São Paulo, Brazil, members of the Legion of Mary are gathering today for the opening of a new retreat centre. It's a day of celebration, a Frank Duff. Some Irish people who knew Frank Duff have travelled to Brazil for the occasion.
Well, my connection with Brazil began over 50 years ago when Frank Duff said to me, you better start learning Portuguese.
Literally have been inspired by him, you know. It's not just a figure of speech, but they really, as they've got to know him, they've really taken him to their hearts.
Frank Duff was a man ahead of his time because his vision involved the laity. And of course the Legion promotes this as much as possible, that lay people participate in the church and spread the church and promote the sacraments, the repeated sacraments.
This model of Irish legionaries are especially thankful that the Legion of Mary has now spread to virtually every diocese. The vision and achievement of Frank Duff was truly remarkable. Luckily, we have much evidence that help us understand Frank and his ideas. We have his writings and minutes from Legion meetings, and we also have a sense of his personality. In a video interview in 1979, Frank recalls some of the early reaction to his plans.
The Legion, from its first moment, was in the hands of the Blessed Virgin. And building on that idea, I ventured on the prognostication to them that they would encompass the whole world. They thought it so funny that they must have consumed the best part of 5 minutes in uproarious laughter. Such was the respect with which my prophecy was treated.
A very chatty man, you know, very, I remember we travelled down to a Legion Congress in the car and that, you know, of course he'd be chatting away and he'd talk about all kinds of subjects. You know. And even I remember we had a break and went for a little walk, another young chap and myself, and he talked to us just as if we were veterans, you know, like he is.
Well, I first came to know Frank Duff about 1969, and I was amazed at the interest he had in me as a person, and I think the great confidence he had in young people, and he always, I think, took the view of getting the best out of people.
He was very encouraging because he'd say, when you go to some place you might find 10 things that are wrong. Now he said, obviously you can't deal with every one of them, just deal with one, and the other 9 will improve.
I was going by the terribly evident spirit of ordinary, simple people showing a degree of spirit which seemed to be limitless.
Frank Duff was born in Dublin on the 7th of June 1889, the eldest of 7 children. It was a home that valued education, and Frank proved to be a high achiever at school. The family struggled with poor health, and when Frank left school, he became the breadwinner. He worked in the civil service under the then British administration in Ireland. Frank had a devout Catholic upbringing, and he was diligent in his practice. And he also read about his faith and the lives of saints. He was looking for a deeper spiritual insight.
You have to have the entry of what we might call theological considerations into the position. It must be a complete faith. It must be a Catholic faith. It must believe in the doctrines of the Catholic Church. It must believe in something that is far too much neglected, and that's the Blessed Virgin.
Wanting to put his faith into action, Frank joined the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in 1913. It brought him into contact with the hidden life in Dublin. Behind its glorious Georgian facade, Dublin was a poor place in the early decades of the 20th century. The city had some of the worst slums in Europe. But Frank saw the spiritual faith of the people. He was convinced that by reaching out to people of lost faith or none, they could be brought to the safety of Mother Church by trusting in Our Lady. In his studies, Frank was greatly influenced by de Montfort's true devotion to the Blessed Virgin. Then, in 1916, he wrote a religious pamphlet of his own, Can We Be Saints? He answered that we are all called to be saints and that our Catholic faith can help us on that journey. It was one of his earliest insights and came to be one of his strongest convictions in life.
The ordinary lay person, down to the very simplest person, is capable of apostleship.
Anxious to reach out to the neglected poor and sinners of Dublin, Frank and a group of like-minded people came together. They called themselves the Association of Our Lady of Mercy and prayed to Our Lady for grace and guidance. Later, the group agreed to Frank's proposed new name, the Legion of Mary. The 50th anniversary of the first meeting was remembered in 1971.
And in the room at the back of this house, in 1921, a little group of people gathered together and had a meeting. And that was the beginning of the Legion of Mary.
It started from very small beginnings. It almost happened in a type of providential way. A few people came together, young girls mostly, and at that time the laity certainly weren't seen to have much of a role. And from there it spread to virtually every diocese of the world.
Like it's nearly like the way the church started with the 12 apostles, and just to think that that all emanated from one man.
The grinding inner-city poverty in Dublin in the 1920s meant that social structures were decaying. A byproduct was the existence in Dublin of one of the biggest red light districts in Europe. The police had been ignoring the issue of prostitution, and so too had the church. Under Frank's leadership, the Legion organised religious retreats for the street girls, and then permanent accommodation was provided with help from the new Irish government. Slowly, in the name of the Mother of God, the Legion drew the young women into a new enlightenment. The Legion's efforts changed lives and ultimately changed the character of a whole district of Dublin.
That place never looked back. It was the most successful thing of its kind in all history. In fact, I don't know whether religious history produces anything like our systematic approach, the sustained effort, the total success.
The Legion of Mary's activities and vision expanded. Other Legion hostels opened with more places for destitute men and women. As it grew more organised, Frank prepared a Legion handbook. A group would be known as a presidium and would meet for weekly prayer, discussion and apostolic works. Trust in Our Lady would be a guiding force. And visitation by legionaries, outreach to the marginalised, would be the work of evangelisation. The handbook was the operational manual.
I think the handbook is a wonderful help to all of us to learn about the organisation and to learn about, generally, about being active in the church as well.
The Legion Handbook has been translated into over 200 languages, with more added each year.
It's in a way like the Bible. Every time you go back over a bit, you say, gosh, I've never read that before. But at different stages in your life, it has a different message.
Frank Duff saw the Legion of Mary as an opportunity for committed lay people to offer service to their local parish alongside the clergy. It was a revolutionary concept, decades ahead of its time. The idea caught people's imagination, and new branches of the Legion opened up across Ireland, and then abroad, firstly in Glasgow, and then London in 1929. One enterprising legionary brought the idea to India in 1931. Some said it wouldn't work, but it did. The Legion flourished in Catholic India. By the time of the Eucharistic Congress in Dublin in 1932, the Legion was quite well known internationally. Pope Pius XI had given the Legion a special blessing the previous year. Many visiting pilgrims introduced the Mary in Australia came about as a direct result of the Eucharistic Congress. Spread worldwide. A nominated Presidium member in every country kept in contact with Legion headquarters in Dublin. Frank's excellent organizational structure meant the Legion could be replicated anywhere. But more importantly, this was an organization with deep spiritual roots, which reflected Frank's own profound faith. Those that knew him said he attended Mass twice daily and spent 4 hours a day in prayer.
Then, of course, he recited the Divine Office, every day, and then he had the Rosary, he had the Golders of Our Lady and all this, and he certainly had a very great foundation of prayer in his day,
And I think we were all conscious of that, because any time we went to the oratory in Regina Coeli, when we'd be leaving after Mass, Frank would be staying behind to read his breviary or say the Rosary or that. So we were aware that, of course, he was a man of deep spirituality.
One of Frank's innovations was to send specially trained envoys to bring the Legion to distant lands. Some envoys made an extraordinary contribution to the development of local churches. Adele Quinn worked in East Africa for 8 years, before her untimely death in 1944. And in South America in the 1950s, Alfie Lamb played a vital evangelical role.
Pope John XXIII made modern church history.
In 1962, the Pope summoned 2,500 bishops to Rome for the Second Vatican Council. They were looking for ways to modernize the faith and make it more accessible. Then Pope Paul VI invited Frank Duff to attend as an auditor, a special observer, as the council had a particular interest in promoting the active participation and evangelizing role of lay people.
And when he walked in, Cardinal Heenan was speaking and saw him and said, Frank Duff, there were 2,500 bishops and abbots there. They all stood up and applauded. He was there for 3 months, so that's about 30 lectures that he gave, and some of them in French, to groups of bishops.
It must have been an amazing experience for him to go to the Second Vatican Council, an extraordinary event in the Church, and to see ideas that he had had so many years beforehand being simply recognized as a normal part of Church life.
The Vatican Council number 2 represents an act of faith in the Legion of Mary. That's the great success of the Legion. It's mobilization of those people of the world who would have been deemed unfit for apostleship. Well, that's our chief possession. And that's what Pope Paul said. What I like, he says, most about the Legion of Mary is that it knows how to use the little people.
Today, the Legion continues to be relevant and inspirational. Millions of members across the world now gather each week to pray and to enrich their faith. And with the help of Our Lady, they continue to bring the good news of God's salvation to others. It's the same model of organization set up in 1921 by Frank Duff. And from its very small beginnings, it has become the largest Catholic lay organization in the world. Headquarters, the Concilium, is still in Dublin, in modest premises just down the road from Frank Duff's house. Meetings still take place in the same room where Frank spent so much of his time. He had left the civil service in 1932 to work full-time for the Legion. As he neared 70 years old, Frank Duff retired as an active officer of the Conchilium, but he remained deeply involved as a guiding influence and mentor for the younger leadership.
I knew Frank Duff quite well, actually, and I'm very proud of that fact too. He was a very humble man, and he was a very, very intellectual man at the same time. You know, very, very well read, even though he hadn't got third level education.
The other thing I used to think about is how he fitted so much into a day, because he gave over a lot of time to writing, reading, prayer life, apostolate, meetings, and yet he seemed to get through it all.
The bike round. So he was the most remarkable man, you know, and I count it a great privilege of my life to have known him.
I was fascinated by him in some ways, you know, and to listen to him, you know, and to follow his train of thought. It was, I found it a very enriching experience, you know.
Now in his 90s, Frank Duff was gradually slowing down. He had endured several bouts of illness, including a stroke. The 7th of November 1980 was his last day on earth.
The morning of the day he died, he was at a funeral. He just met us all, shook hands with us, and asked us how we were. And he couldn't have been too good himself because, you know, he was old and frail and fragile, but people were glad to meet him.
At news of his death, there was sadness, and also a universal sense of the holy life of Frank Duff. People gathered to share in the sanctity of the occasion.
We knew, like, that people would want to come from distant places and to allow time for the news to go. So it was arranged with Panicans that they would embalm his body. And so it was lying in state up there in the Regina Coeli Hostel, and the crowds were down the avenue, down as far as Brunswick Street, all day long.
The funeral was like a state occasion, attended by Ireland's president, government and a host of dignitaries. The funeral procession went down O'Connell Street, the grand thoroughfare of Ireland's capital. The nation was in mourning at the loss of a great but very unassuming spiritual leader.
The Legion, from its first moment, was in the hands of the Blessed Virgin. My departure from the scene is not going to remove it from her hands.
Dear friends from Ireland.
When he heard of Frank's death, Pope John Paul sent a telegram to the Legion. The Pope said that the association Frank founded enabled countless lay Catholics fulfill their evangelizing role zealously and effectively. Today is a special day at Frank Duff's grave.
Good afternoon.
Cardinal Diaz has come from Rome for a meeting of priests in Dublin, but he has set some time aside because he wanted to join with legionaries as they gather to remember Frank.
We know that this 21st century is the century of the laity, and we're having to give this big push ahead. But thank God that the Lord chose Frank Duff to sow the seeds. And indeed, all over the world, especially in mainland China, Korea, Far East, Africa, the seed is still producing fruit. And I think that now we have realized more and more how much he was illumined by the Holy Spirit. God our Father, by your servant Frank Duff.
Cardinal Diaz leads the legionaries in the prayer for the beatification of Frank Duff. They pray, God our Father, you inspired your servant Frank Duff with a profound insight into the mystery of your church, the body of Christ, and of the place of Mary, the mother of Jesus, in this mystery. And they ask that if it be God's will, the holiness of Frank's life be acknowledged by the Church for the glory of your name, through Christ our Lord. Amen. When he was 27 years old, Frank asked, can we be saints? Now a process has begun to prove he was indeed a saint himself. In 1996, the Archbishop of Dublin, Dr. Desmond Connell, introduced the cause of Frank Duff's canonisation.
Desmond Connell, in procesul canonizzazione servi Francisci Duff.
Canonisation to sainthood can only be enacted by the Holy See. The Vatican has special procedures, and the process involves a long investigation requiring proof that a person lived and died in an exemplary and holy way. And it is the Pope who makes the final declaration. Pope Benedict XVI has imparted his blessing to legionaries and declared his appreciation of the Legion of Mary in the service of the Church. It's hoped the Pope will also recognise the service of the Legion's founder. Practical steps towards canonisation require careful preparation of any documents and testimony. This evidence is assembled under the auspices of the candidate's home diocese. It's a very thorough process, and theologians must examine the statements of the candidate to confirm their fidelity to the faith. In the cause of Frank Duff, much of this work has already been completed.
We have the theological experts who've looked over the writing. That's all in place. We've had all the material looked at by a number of people. Something like 33,000 letters. I mean, the man was writing over 30 letters a day. This is Frank being humble again, I think. He had, I believe, one of the first little dictaphones, and he would talk his letters into them. They'd be typed up by a number of secretaries here in the Legion, and then he'd sign them all, and copies were all kept.
He was always extremely appreciative of anything anyone did, and he was also always giving people encouragement, be they in the Legion or outside it, to raise their standards or to do a job. And I'm just looking here at a letter where a legionary had written, or a person had written in and wondering should they go forward for officer, and he was encouraging the lady to go forward. So he was always on the alert to give people encouragement.
On the anniversary of Frank Duff's death every November, Irish legionaries gather at Dublin's Pro Cathedral. Amongst their prayers is a plea to advance the cause of Frank's canonisation. Following the detailed investigation, the next stage in the process is the verification of heroic sanctity, where a person is decreed to be a venerable. The next stage requires at least one authentic miracle in order to declare the venerable as blessed. Finally, canonization itself is a declaration by the Pope that a deceased person is raised to the full honours of the altar, that is, a saint. 2 miracles credited to the Beatus are usually required before canonization.
The Lord be with you. I remember once interviewing a man, because I'm in charge of the cause for the beatification, Frank Duff, a man from the hostel, the Morning Star Hostel. And he knew Frank Duff very well, and I said to him, now, are you prepared to say what you say under oath? Because it's no good to me unless you're prepared to swear on the Bible that it's true, you know. So he said he was. And I said, what do you remember most about Frank Duff? Now, this is a man who was an alcoholic, who was really a tragic life, really, tragic life. And he said an extraordinary thing to me. He said, Father, Frank Duff was the only man I ever met who looked up to me. That is a tremendous thing to say, the reverence, taking the dignity of a person, no matter how crashed they are in life. You know, you've got to believe that whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. That is his basic theology and practice, you know. So when I heard that, I said, now that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of saint I like.
Those working to progress the cause know there is solid evidence and compelling eyewitness testimony to support the canonization of Frank Duff.
It was just something else. Yeah, that's my summing of him. It was something.
He was very ordinary, good company, and yet there was something.
There was something different. When I say different, I suppose he really is a saint.
Perhaps the best evidence of the heroic sanctity of Frank Duff is in the lives of all the millions of members of the Legion of Mary.
We must have sufficient belief that her dispensation will continue on undiminished, inasmuch as the Legion becomes more and more a vital element to the Church.
UTM special presentation.